Okay, welcome. I am glad to see all of you here that you're that interested in mason bees today. My name's Jane Collier. I'm a Clackamas County Master Gardener. We're trained by OSU to provide research-based material that's adaptable to our area. This is just a 25-minute presentation, so I will be out for the next half hour after the presentation to answer any questions you have. Okay, we're going to talk about orchard mason bees, which are sometimes called blue orchard mason bees, or sometimes people just call them the blue bee. They are a native bee, and they are very beneficial and helpful in pollinating our early fruit trees and our early berries. Okay, here's just a little bit of information about the orchard mason bee. They are native to North America. They are easy early season pollinators because they are active from mid-March to mid-May, and that is a time that you don't have a lot of other pollinators out in the garden. They're a very gentle bee. The males do not sting at all, and the females will only sting if you trap them, you know, or squish them, something like that. They are very small. They are a blue, kind of bluish color, and I have samples up here. I'll pass these around so you can see these little guys. They are a lot of times, people think they're flies because they're little blue, but just for some little bit of trivia here, flies only have one set of wings. All flies have one set of wings, and all bees have two sets of wings. So if you ever catch some, or you're able to look at them closely, because a lot of flies look like bees, a lot of bees look like flies, so you'll know the difference there. They are a solitary bee. They don't make hives like honeybees. They are individual. Okay, we're going to talk about the mason bee versus the honeybee. Now, neither one of them is better than the other one. It's just that they have different capabilities. But I'm going to tell you some interesting facts about why you are going to want to get mason bees into your home. Okay, mason bees are active at a much lower temperature than honeybees. You may not think a few degrees is a lot, but it is a lot when you have flowers out there on your fruit trees or on your berry trees. So mason bees will start flying around 54 degrees, and they will come out of their nests when the weather has been 50 or above for several days in a row. So that's why they come out around mid-March. Honeybees fly at a little warmer temperature. They're still in their hives making their honey. They'll come out somewhere around 57, 59 degrees. Mason bees are also true Oregonians because they don't mind coming out when it's a little bit wet. They don't mind flying around foraging for the nectar and pollen that they need to get. They will come out earlier in the day than the honeybees will, and they will stay out foraging around later at night. So that's a good reason to have mason bees in your home. They'll also stick closer to home. Honeybees fly for miles, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. But mason bees will stay in your own neighborhood, in your own yard, pollinating your own flowers, and that's even a better thing. And it does take less mason bees to pollinate a fruit tree than it does a honeybee. So I have a question for you. How many mason bees do you think it takes to pollinate a fruit tree? Anybody have some guess? 10? Any other guesses? 200. 200? Any other guesses? One? Well, it takes 7. Only 7 mason bees to pollinate a fruit tree. How many honeybees do you think it takes to pollinate a fruit tree? 700. 700? Actually, he's not too far off. How about 545 honeybees to pollinate a fruit tree? Pretty interesting. Now everybody that doesn't have mason bees wants to have them in their home, don't they? Or at their home, not in their home. Oh, honeybee, well, I will tell you why that is. It's because of how many flowers a mason bee can go to in a day. Honeybees they have to make honey. They have another job that they're going to do. So they're not going to be doing quite as much pollinating from flower to flower to flower as the mason bees do. Okay, now if you want to attract these mason bees to your home, there's a few things you're going to need, that they are going to need. One thing they're going to need is food, and they're going to need pollen and nectar. because that's how they're going to be able to produce the next generation. They prefer to use the composite flowers, which are the flowers that look like a whole flower, a large flower, but inside of it are tiny, tiny little flowers like your daisies and things like that. They also really like the shape of the blueberry flower, which is also the same shape. Those of you that have an Andromeda bush, it's called a Pieris japonica bush. It's the same shape as the blueberry flower. They really like that, and those are blooming right now. So they're ready for your mason bees. As soon as your mason bees come out, they're going to have some place to go to get that pollen and that nectar. But they will come to any flower. So no matter what flowers you have in your yard or in your landscape, you know that you'll be able to get those mason bees to come. The other thing they need is mud, and this has to do with how they make their nesting, how they do their nesting. Now they want the mud pretty close to where their nests are. We're lucky here in the Pacific Northwest that we have clay soil, and Sherry probably talked to you at the last talk about how good clay soil is, how nutrient rich it is. And it's a good thing because that's what the mason bees want. They want to make their mud out of our good clay soil. That's probably why we have so many mason bees hanging around. If you don't have mud, which, forget it, we live in Oregon, you've got mud. So you don't really have to worry about making your own mud. We've got it around here. Okay, one thing that people are always calling our office and worrying about, they'll say, I have bees going in and out of the siding of my house, and I know they're ruining it. What am I going to do about that? Mason bees do not drill their own holes. They only use existing holes. They don't damage anything. So when you see these little bees going in and out of your, especially your T111 siding that has those little holes in it, when you see those bees going in and out, they're not harming it. They're just using that space to make a nest to lay another egg. Out in nature, they will use anything that's hollow, bamboo, kiwi vines, any reeds that you happen to have, things like that. They will also make their nest if you have electrical boxes outside. Anything that's a little bit larger than they are, that's the size of a hole that they want. How about a nozzle that you had left outside? There's a mason bee. This one, I'm sorry, it's been in here for a few years, so he didn't make it out. But they use this to make their home. So anything that's the right size, they will make their home. But don't worry about them ruining anything, because they're not going to be drilling. It's not like a carpenter bee at all. Now, for us to invite these mason bees to our home and our area, we can do that by making homes for them. And I have some examples on the photo, and I have some examples up here. This one belongs to Sherry, who did your last presentation for you. It's just a wood block that they drilled the correct size holes in, and the mason bees love to use this. What's most popular for people are straws. You can purchase straws at several of the bee stores we have in our area. And when we first started, mason bees first started getting really popular around here. I don't have a picture of it. People started by drilling holes in small little 4-inch blocks of wood. But then through research, they have found that the mason bees prefer a 6-inch. So now when you go to purchase your straws, they are 6 inches long. They also, there is more research being done that maybe 11.5 inches might even be better. But that research is still ongoing because they have found a certain size makes makes more females than males. The female that lays her eggs can decide whether that bee is going to be a male or a female. And they found that if 4 inches, you don't have as many females. In 6 inches, you'll have more females than you will males. So that's a good thing about the straws. And we'll talk a little bit more about what to do with your straws pretty soon. A lot of the homes, when people use their straws, PVC pipes are an easy way to do it. Some people just take cans and they put the straws, you just fill them, and there's your home. Well, you can purchase your mason bees. Right now is a good time to go out and purchase mason bees. Some place sells them in a straw. They will sell you a straw that's full of mason bees. And you can put a straw, one full straw and empty straws together. And in my next slide, one of these next slides, I'll tell you how many bees a female mason bee is able to lay. Okay, the life cycle of a mason bee. Right now, they're getting ready. They're almost ready to come out of their nest. The males emerge first. And this is really tricky. The female knows when she lays an egg in those straws, she knows that she's going to put the females at the very back of the straw and the males at the front of the straw. So the males come out first. And what they do is they have to need some strength for their job, and their job is mating, and that is only their job. So they have to go find some flowers to get a little bit of energy. Then the females start coming out. Well, after they mate, and then the male dies. Like I said, he has one job only. So then the female, 3 or 4 days later, she starts to make her nest. So what she does, she begins by taking mud, and I'm going to send around some little mud plugs so you can see what they look like. She first takes heavy mud, and she puts it at the back of her straw, or her nest, whatever it may be, and then she goes out and decides she needs to start collecting the pollen and the nectar for the babies. So she will go to 75 to 150 flowers in a day. And when she thinks she has enough, she'll take these back to the little straw, and she'll put them in there, and then when she thinks she's had enough, she'll lay her egg. Then she'll go get some more mud, and she lays an egg. There we go. She makes another plug, and then she starts it all over again. The next day, she'll go out and visit another 75, 150 flowers. Bring it back to the nest, lay an egg, until her straw is completely full. And then when her straw is completely full, she will start on another nest or another straw. A female can lay, in her lifetime, she'll lay about 1 egg a day, and she'll live to be 30, 40 days. So just think, if you had 1 straw, this female is going to, and then maybe there's 4 females in here, and each one of these females is going to lay 30 eggs. You can imagine how easy it is, how quickly they can fill up 40 straws, or a number of straws, how quickly they can do that with just 1 straw of live mason bees. The next year you will have a bunch of mason bees. Okay, the egg's inside. It has its nectar and its pollen. And here is some pollen blobs, so you can see what they look like. So the larva, for about 10 days, stays inside of this little tiny mud plug, and that's a picture of it right there, and is eating this pollen and nectar and getting nutrients. And then they're going to spin their cocoon. And in the cocoon, they're going to start pupating and turning into a full-size bee. By the end of summer, inside of that cocoon, every cocoon will have a bee, a fully developed bee. Okay? Then they're going to just stay in there, and they're going to wait till next spring to come back out and start pollinating all your flowers, all your trees. There's several problems that mason bees have, but the biggest problems are the Columbian mites and the chalcid wasp. This is a cocoon, and if you can see, the little white dots that you see on top of that are the mites. And what happens is, when the female is out in pollinating and going to flower, these mites attach to her body. And then when she goes inside of the straw or inside of her nest, they come off. And what they're going to do is they're going to be in there with all that nice nectar and pollen, and they're going to start eating it. And if the mite population is too large, then they're going to eat up all the food source for the bee. So the bees aren't going to have anything to eat, and they're going to die. And that's why at the end here we can talk about how to clean those mites off of your cocoons. The other big problem they have is this chalcid wasp. These things it's amazing in nature how these things work. But they can get through pretty hard material. They do not have a stinger. What looks like a stinger is called an ovipositor. It's where they lay their eggs. So they take their ovipositor and they stick it inside of a larva, and they lay an egg in there. The wasp egg hatches, and then it starts to eat the inside of the larva. So then you have no bee that way either. So these are a couple of the problems, and you can see how tiny they are. These are the chalcid wasps. Very, very small. Okay, you can make raising mason bees as simple or as complicated as you want to. You can make it very simple by getting straws or drilling holes in wood and just leaving them like that. Or you can, at the end of the season, when the bees are in their full development, usually in the fall, we know that they're fully developed, you can take them out of your straws, and that's why they make these inner part to these hard parts of the straw. They make these inside parts so that they're easy to tear apart. You can take out the cocoons. You can wash them in a bleach solution, or they're also doing a sand mix where you wash these cocoons up, and then the cocoons get some of the mites off of them. And then what you do is you stick them in a box somewhere, like a nice box that has a little tiny hole in it, like that. You put all your cocoons in there. This is in the fall, remember. Stick them in the refrigerator because you don't want them to get warm, because if they get warm, remember, they are a full-size bee, and if you've had warm temperature for a while, they're going to come out of their cocoon. They're going to emerge out of the cocoon. So you want to leave them in a box in your refrigerator, and then mid-March, bring them out, set them outside, and they'll start coming out of their little hole. But remember, the nice thing is, put your box right below a whole bunch of straws or a nice nesting box. That way they'll come out, the females will find the holes, and then they can start laying their eggs in it. So it can become complicated if you want to, or it can become pretty simple too. This is a picture of a little tiny male mason bee coming out of his home. How do I know that's a male?
It's the first one out.
First one out, and he's got a little white on his forehead. The females don't have the little white hairs on their forehead, so you can always tell a male from a female. The males also have a little bit longer antenna, and they're a little bit smaller. In nature, in the insect world, the males are usually a little bit smaller than the females. And remember when I was talking about making it simple or hard? Do you see those blue dots on those straws? Okay, what you can do is, in the summer, after you know that the straws are all filled up, you can take a magic marker and put a little dot on each one of those mud plugs that's right at the beginning of your straw, like those shows. Then, the next spring, when they start emerging, if you have one, say like you can see a couple of them that nothing has come out of yet, by midsummer, if you found that some of those are still plugged up, you know that no bees came out of those, and you're ready to throw those away and put in a fresh straw. So that's kind of the simple way to do it. You're going to get rid of some bad things without having to go through taking them out and washing them, things like that. These are cocoons that have already been washed. They've already been soaked in a little bit of bleach solution, so they don't have very many mites on them. They're just very tiny, very nice looking. That's not them. And here is an interesting photo. One of the master gardeners in Washington County makes these types of nests, and he puts plexiglass on the top so that usually he has one on top of another. But he puts the plexiglass on so he can watch them. So this is the females partway through their nesting cycle. You can see at the very back there's a few mud plugs. There's also some pollen in there, some pollen and nectar blobs in there. And then the females are going in and out, in and out. Isn't that very interesting? Fun to have this so that you can kind of look at it and see what they're doing, and then close it back up again. So I do have time for 5 minutes for some questions in here. Yes?
If you have the wood blocks, how do you clean the wood blocks?
Okay, the problem with having wood blocks without the straws in, that the only way to clean them is to re-drill them. So if you do have just wood blocks, I really would suggest that you take that magic marker this summer, or even now, if you have wood blocks and your bees haven't come out yet, take your magic marker and dot each one of those. And then when they've finally stopped, the bees are all gone, they're done, by the middle of summer, anything that still has a dot on it, I would re-drill that, because you know that that one is empty.
Is there a certain size drill?
Is there a certain size drill? Yes. They prefer 1/4 to 3/8 inch size holes, and I believe your handout tells you the exact dimension of making the holes, same size as these straws. Yes, sir?
Where can you buy these straws?
Right now you can buy bees at the Backyard Bird Shop sells them, Rural Bird Supply sells them, Rural Bee Supply, excuse me, the one in Gladstone. Also sometimes the Home Orchard Society sells them. You might be able to contact them for your bees. Yes?
Is there a way you wouldn't have enough flowers and nectar in your yard to maintain the forest?
She wants to know if there's if maybe she didn't have enough flowers to maintain these bees. They would probably find what they needed, but they just wouldn't be able to. The less flowers you have in your yard, the less the eggs that the females are going to produce, and the less females she will produce from those eggs. Yes?
Can you make straws yourself out of anything?
Can you make straws yourself? They say that plastic straws are not good because they draw too much moisture. Some people do take some paper and roll them up on a pencil to make it. These are not very expensive, just a couple cents a piece. So, and they're hard enough, and they are, the mason bees really seem to like it. They've done a lot of research.
You're buying the white part?
You're actually buying both of them, but this part that's a little bit more expensive can save from year to year. Or that's only if you take these out. You don't have to take these out. You can leave them in and just let them stay in the white straw too, if you're not going to take them out and clean them. Yes, yes.
Some of our mason bee boxes are plugged up now.
Yes, they're plugged up right now.
Yes.
Yes.
Are they
They're getting ready. They will be out in a couple weeks as soon as we start having a little bit more warm weather. Some people may have found a few mason bees flying around already, but they will be coming out around mid-May is when they start emerging from the straws. There should be bees in there, yes. And if by summer your straws are still full or your boxes are still full, you didn't see any coming in and out, then you'll know that something was wrong with, and that they didn't make it. Yes. Yes.
If you bought a vial of cocoons from Backyard Bird Shop and kept them in your refrigerator
Yes.
and put them out under your forsythia bush, which is now
Blooming.
will they stay there until it gets to be 50
Okay, she wants to know if she buys some bees now, she takes them and she puts them underneath her forsythia bush, will they stay in that state? They will not emerge from their cocoons until it's warm enough. Yes, you just have to make sure that whatever you put them in, that's why it's really good to have a box with a little tiny hole in it, so that saves you from cats or birds or anything getting to your cocoons. So you put your little cocoons that are already washed inside of your box, make the same size hole that they like to come out of. That way other critters won't go in, but as soon as they come out, they will come out, they will go up, they'll find your forsythia bush. Yes, sir.
We have a population somewhere around our area. If we put tubes out, would they come?
Yes. What is that saying from the movie? They will come. Put them out and they will come. Yes. You don't even need you don't need to buy bees. They will come. It may take a couple years for them to get the population up. Okay, my time is up. I will be out there to answer any questions. Thank you all for coming.